We love Trump. We love Trump. I love that. That's pretty cool.
Did I call it yesterday?
You did call it.
I did call it. But hey, everybody, welcome to the show. Before we start our show today, can you please do us a favor and share our show with all your friends? Stomp that like button. Subscribe wherever you see the name Is This Thing Working? Also, to inform you, each and every day at 2 p.m. on Rumble, we do live stream. Each and every day. So
there you go.
Catch us there.
There you go. Catch us there on Rumble. We appreciate it. And on Getter, we go live on Rumble, Getter, and Facebook. We're going to mention to you today that we're going to have a special show coming up. It's going to be our 100th episode, and we are very excited about it. So stay tuned. We just can't believe we've made it to 100.
Right. And it's came pretty fast, too.
Yes.
It did. Just to put it in perspective, we were at like number 30 or something around Christmas time.
Yes.
So,
and then we went in, was it March? No, February. Did we go full time?
Yes, in February we did.
5 days a week.
Yep.
So it's been a lot of fun, a lot of learning process, and a
lot more work than I ever would have imagined.
Oh my goodness,
yep.
This is a real job. I mean,
fun.
you have to like put everything into it, but it is fun. We have learned a lot for someone our age to just start all over again and learn this technology. That's what's going on right now. I'm awed at us for doing this. I really am. So thank you everybody that listens to us and has listened to almost 100 episodes. It's really great.
Yeah.
I really had a good time, and I appreciate every one of you for showing up every single day. But stay tuned. It's going to be fun next week on Tuesday for that show. We're going to be promoting it. So,
exactly. And the thing is, we always say we want you to be informed and we want you to become engaged. And I guess this morning we've got to inform you. And according to Speaker Mike Johnson, apparently we're at war. I know nobody has really come out, and declared that we're at war. At least I haven't heard that up until him.
Yeah, it was really crazy because when I heard it, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't remember anyone going to the Senate and saying we are in war. And all of a sudden he says he's a wartime speaker.
Here we go. Here's him talking about this.
Look, we are in unprecedented times. Okay, we're in dangerous times, as has been articulated here, around the world, and here at home. We need steady leadership. We need steady hands at the wheel. I regard myself as a wartime speaker. I mean, in a literal sense, we are. I knew that when I took the gavel. I didn't anticipate that this would be an easy path. Former Speaker Newt Gingrich posted a couple days ago on his social media that this is the hardest challenge that's faced a speaker probably in the history of the country, in the moment that we're in right now. He said arguably maybe comparable to the Civil War, but maybe worse. Well,
he spoke Newt Gingrich. He used Newt Gingrich.
Yeah.
Wow.
He grifted.
Newt Gingrich loves war.
Exactly. Him sitting here saying that I consider myself a wartime speaker because we're literally in a war. Are we? Are we really in a war?
Please tell us where we're in a war. Now, there's war out there.
I guess
in the Middle East and Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah.
But that does not involve us.
We're not in the war. We start them and then we let it go.
Yes, and then we pay for them. We pay for everybody else's war.
And then we go in and take over the regime afterwards. We change the regime. That's our game, Mike. I guess that's what he means then.
I guess that is what he means.
Good
because,
God.
they continue to pay for it too. I mean, we have to pay for every war. Why do we have to give them money?
We pay for both sides. That's what the military-industrial complex is all about.
Well, I know he's talking about weapons and how that's important and more jobs and and all that. I guarantee you that one of them, the important ones or all that, give him that talking point.
Well, sure.
He didn't come up with that on his own.
Well, and he even made the statement, I think it was on Maria this morning, he made the statement that he has no worry about being removed as Speaker of the House. Why would you? Because all you do is everything that Chuck Schumer tells you to go in there and do. Kind of like what I said with McCarthy last year when he should have went in there when the debt limit talks and he should have went in there and had all the leverage. He walked in there and he allowed them to tell him what he was going to do, and he walked back out. Same thing with this dude.
This is the exact same thing.
He ain't no different.
Well, I tell you what, Mike Johnson must exhibit stronger leadership over the House as President Trump endures political persecution. Now, nowhere, that's all they're talking about. And I believe in my heart that all they're doing is giving you noise over here about some war while President Trump is being politically persecuted in New York City. And we're watching it play by play every single day.
It's the wag the dog moment.
It is.
Yeah.
It is the wag the dog moment, and I believe it is time for Speaker Johnson to get his priorities right. Don't you?
Yeah. Well, and this is talking about what you just said in this Gateway Pundit article. Paul Ingracia, this is what he writes about this. He says that this week, President Trump faces a political persecution in New York State, forcing him into the courtroom and off the campaign trail. So every single day, President Trump, who now leads in most state polls as the front runner for the 2024 general election, is hamstrung from campaigning. Is another day Biden and his regime apparatchiks get an unfair advantage. The strategy of what President Trump's enemies are doing is readily on display. Biden has deliberately rigged the playing field to give his team, which languishes in countless self-inflicted crises, every opportunity it could get to make up lost ground.
Exactly. So thank you, Mr. Ingracia, because this is what needs to be said.
Sure. And I agree with him. But then again, what did I say about that? I called it on Monday, didn't I?
You sure did.
I called it.
You did.
Judge Marchand wants to sit in there and holler that we got a gag order and that you can't speak out or criticize this case. You can't do anything. You can't go nowhere. You got to be in court 5 days a week for 6 to 8 weeks. And that's what we know. He's supposed to be required in court now for 6 to 8 weeks. And I said this on Monday. I said that the perfect strategy for that move to counter it would be to go, well, okay, I'll stay in New York and I'm going to hold my rallies in the streets. Remember, I even said that. Yes. I said President Trump should just hold his rallies 5 nights a week on the steps of the courthouse for the entire 6 to 8 weeks.
Yep.
Well, guess what? He started it, man.
He did. He started it.
Go, President Trump.
Yes. I mean, when he came out of court yesterday, President Trump goes down to Harlem to a bodega. You know how he's going all over the country. He goes to, Chick-fil-A and McDonald's, and he buys everyone something to eat, or a shake is what he did last time. But it's really cool how there was huge cheers for Trump at a Harlem bodega. Massive crowd chants, Trump, 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 which you heard, and USA, USA, and USA. What they didn't say here in this headline of Gateway Pundit is the one that we played when we first started, also happened yesterday. The I love you, Trump. I love you, Trump. I love you. I love you. But here we go. We have his speech from the bodega.
President Trump, what are the first things you're going to do when you take office to address the inner cities of America and give them hope to restore the American dream? Atlanta, New York, Philly, Chicago, D.C.
Come in, and number one, you have to stop crime, and we're going to let the police do their job. They have to be given back their authority. They have to be able to do their job, and we're going to come into New York. We're making a big play for New York. Other cities too, but this city, I love this city, and it's gone so bad in the last 4 years, and we're going to straighten New York out. So, running for president, we're putting a big hit for New York. We think we can win New York. With 500,000 migrants to pour in and take over the parks. They took over your hotels. They take over everything. It's no good. And you know what they've done? They've destroyed so many people. The African-American community now is not getting jobs. Migrants are taking their jobs that are here illegally. Hispanics are not getting jobs. Migrants are taking the jobs. If you look at the unemployment is good for migrants now. It went up 10%, all migrants. And they're in our country. Now, they're coming from prisons. I don't know if you know. They come from mental institutions. They come from prisons. They come from places you don't want to know about. They're coming from jails and prisons, mental institutions, and insane asylums. And you have massive numbers of terrorists coming into our country, all because of Biden. And by the way, this trial that I have now, that's a Biden trial. They want to keep me off the campaign trail. But based on what I'm doing, I think there's more press here than there is if I went out to some nice location. I like the police have to be able to do their job. The police in New York are great. They have to be able to do their job. They have to protect these people. Because I just met, look at this young man, and he's got his son who looks like he's a movie star. He's much better looking than the father, and the father looks good. And you know what? He says he's robbed all the time. I said, how you doing? He said, well, we're robbed all the time. It's a beautiful place. He's robbed all the time. Nobody's ever said it's Alvin Bragg's fault. Alvin Bragg does nothing. He goes after guys like Trump who did nothing wrong. Violent criminals, murderers. They know there are hundreds of murderers all over the city. They know who they are, and they don't pick them up. They go after Trump.
Sorry.
Awesome. Here they are trying to persecute him. They think they got a chess move. They're like, we're going to keep you here at court 5 days a week for 6 to 8 weeks. You can't campaign. President Trump says, watch this. And look at how the crowd received him, man.
Yes, and he says he's going to make New York great again.
Yep.
And he will. He loves that city. He started his business in New York City. He made a lot of money for New York City. New York City was his. You know what I mean?
And they love him.
And they love him.
People
there.
of New York love him.
They really do.
The justice system hates him.
They do.
You know, and he's facing a lot of, he's faced all this for as long as he has.
This is what he's still facing. So Donald Trump is facing new legal headaches. Violations of a gag order imposed by Judge Juan Merchan in connection with Donald Trump's hush money criminal trial could bring contempt charges against the former president, but the results won't be known until next week. On Monday, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, overseen by Alvin Bragg, requested a hearing to have Trump held in contempt for violating the order. It is scheduled for 9:30 a.m. Eastern on April 23rd, which is, I believe, next Tuesday. So this is fixing to happen. And then Mike Davis does a post for us this morning, and Democrats. Okay, so on this tweet that he brought up, Alex Gangatano on X decided she's going to write, Democrats are hopeful that President Biden's freedom to hit the campaign trail while former President Trump is stuck in New York in courtrooms for weeks, maybe months, gives his re-election campaign a jolt. So this is what they are hoping, folks.
Yeah.
You know, and this is just more evidence, Mike Davis said, for Trump 47's DOJ's criminal probe of Biden, his White House, his DOJ, and Democrat prosecutors and judges for their criminal conspiracy to violate Trump's civil rights, to interfere in an election. They must face severe legal, financial, and political consequences. I agree 100%. And one other thing that's going on right now is the Supreme Court heard a case yesterday that was very important. We brought this up. Fischer versus the U.S. Has his case all the way to the Supreme Court. And let's listen to one of the judges and his questions to the Solicitor General of the United States of America. Here you go.
If I might, so what does that mean for the breadth of this statute? Would a sit-in that disrupts a trial or access to a federal courthouse qualify? Would a heckler in today's audience qualify, or at the State of the Union address? Would pulling a fire alarm before a vote qualify for 20 years in federal prison?
There are multiple elements of the statute that I think might not be satisfied by those hypotheticals, and it relates to the point I was going to make to the Chief Justice about the breadth of this statute. The kind of built-in limitations are the things that I think would potentially suggest that many of those things wouldn't be something the government could charge or prove as 1512c2 beyond a reasonable doubt, would include the fact that the actus reus does require obstruction, which we understand to be a meaningful interference. So that means that if you have some minor disruption or delay or some minimal outburst, we don't think it falls within the actus reus to begin with.
My outbursts require the court to reconvene after the proceeding has been brought back into line, or the pulling of the fire alarm, the vote has to be rescheduled, or the protest outside of a courthouse makes it inaccessible for a period of time. Are those all federal felonies subject to 20 years in prison?
So with some of them, it would be necessary to show nexus. So with respect to the protest outside the courthouse, we'd have to show that, yes, they were aiming at the proceeding.
Yeah, they were trying to stop the proceeding.
Yes, and then we'd also have to be able to prove that they acted corruptly, and this sets a stringent mens rea. It's not even just the mere intent to obstruct. We have to show that also, but we have to show that they had corrupt intent in acting in that way.
We went around that tree yesterday.
I know. I heard the argument yesterday, but I guess what I would say is that to the extent that your hypotheticals are pressing on the idea of a peaceful protest, even one that's quite disruptive, it's not clear to me that the government would be able to show that each of those protesters had corrupt intent.
So mostly peaceful protest that actually obstructs and impedes an official proceeding for an indefinite period would not be covered?
Not necessarily. We would just have to have the evidence of intent, and that's a high bar.
They intend to do it all right.
That was Judge Gorsuch talking to Elizabeth Prologar, who is the U.S. Solicitor General. And if you notice when they talked, when he began to question her, what he was trying to get her to do was to compare the fact that you brought this case, but you didn't bring the cases against people like Representative Jamal Bowman, BLM protesters, Antifa protesters, LGBTQ protesters.
And the one that tried to get the Supreme Court justice killed.
Well, yeah.
Remember? And and that's what he was also talking about. He was also mentioning the fact that all the protests that happened in front of the Supreme Court after Roe versus Wade. That's another thing that we need to also always remember what they did to the court.
Exactly. And here's the point with this. If you hear us say, well, you know, he was standing there questioning the Solicitor General of the United States. Well, who is the Solicitor General and what does she do? This is the most important part, and this is how he cornered her, and she began to talk in circles because she kept talking about, well, we have to prove intent. And she's the Solicitor General of the United States. Here's we go. There's some information about her. The Solicitor General is appointed by the President and reports directly to who? The U.S. Attorney General. What's her responsibilities? She argues on behalf of the government in virtually every case in which the United States is a party, and also argues in most of the cases in which the government has filed an amicus brief. In the federal courts of appeal, the Office of the Solicitor General reviews cases decided against the United States and determines whether the government will seek review in the Supreme Court. The Solicitor General's office also reviews cases decided against the United States in the federal district courts and approves every case in which the government files an appeal. So the Solicitor General has complete control of the cases that are brought and the cases that are not. And what Neil Gorsuch was grilling her on and pinned her in a corner was the fact that, look, you've got these cases over here against Mr. Fischer, and you decided to bring this. And what you're claiming is the same thing that Antifa, BLM, LGBTQ, Jamal Bowman, Representative Jamal Bowman, by pulling a firearm, and he was specific in his
yes, he did it to stop the vote.
His example, and yes, and Gorsuch was very specific in his example of that, and she turned right around and said it was a hypothetical.
Yeah,
did you hear her say that?
Yeah, and I also heard her say, "Well, it depends on intent,
right?
Whether they meant to harm somebody,
right?" And he told her, "Hey, we circled that tree yesterday." Remember?
Yes.
So he understood. She's sitting here talking in circles to him.
Yes.
And
that's how they do. All the conservatives, that's how they do in President Trump right now.
Yeah.
Every bit of this is lawfare. And it's their talk around, well, it's intent. They're intending to harm us. That is their narrative, and that is what they want you to believe, that conservatives set out to harm you, and Democrats, they're just protesting their social.
Well, that's what we've seen. Yeah, that's what we've seen throughout the whole thing. Yeah.
So we'll just keep an eye on this. This is really big. It's really big for the January 6th people, and I really hope.
Yes, it is.
Even though they're coming out now, Julie Kelly is all over X yesterday and today saying that the Attorney General is already changing because they think they're going to lose this case. So he's already changing the charges and still going to keep them in the prison for the same amount of time. It's ridiculous what they're doing to these people. They don't have a free and fair law system in D.C.
And that's like we always continue to say, if they get away with doing it to them, they're going to do it to one of us. They're going to do it to us too, man.
Yeah,
we gotta stop
They really are. And another thing that we have to stop, that we talk about every single day, and we try to talk about it every day with everything, with all the news going on lately, it's kind of hard to get to everything. But the border, here we go.
Yeah, here's an interview by Maria Bartiromo on Mornings with Maria this morning, and she was talking to Todd Bensman about the border situation and about the impeachment of Mayorkas. So here's just a minute of this. Check this out.
Meanwhile, House lawmakers delivering articles of impeachment against Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas to the Senate yesterday. Senators will be sworn in as jurors this morning for the upcoming impeachment trial. Meanwhile, Mayorkas was testifying on Capitol Hill for his 2025 budget request. He dodged questions about terrorist threats at the border. Watch this.
How many persons on the terror watch list have gotten into this country?
Mr. Chairman, I'd be pleased to provide you with data subsequent to this hearing.
And will you provide the names and backgrounds?
Let me assure you that the security of the American people is our highest priority.
Customs and Border Protection have now arrested 76 people on the FBI terrorist watch list in fiscal year 2024. Joining me right now is Center for Immigration Studies Senior National Security Fellow and author of Overrun, How Joe Biden Unleashed the Greatest Border Crisis in U.S. History. Todd Bensman back with us. Todd, great to see you. Thanks very much. And it certainly feels like the border is overrun in various places. What about these people on the terrorist watch list? What's your reaction to that exchange there with Mayorkas?
It was kind of to be expected. The administration does not want to talk about the suspected terrorists crossing the border. I would have liked to have seen somebody ask him about the latest case of an Afghan who was accidentally released into the country, who was on the terror watch list for an entire year, released once and then released a second time. 2 times this guy was released.
Wow. And that's just one example of many, many, many. You know, and one of the questions that they asked Mayorkas in that hearing, in that hearing right there, how many? They wanted a number, and he couldn't give it to them offhand. Talk about the dangers to our country. Talk about the people coming. Here's some numbers for you, and I got this from this too. Just the Chinese migrant encounters alone, how they've risen since President Trump left office, since Joe Biden took over. Do you know in fiscal year of 2021, they counted of Chinese migrants entering into the encounters, 279. In fiscal year of 22, it jumped to 1,137. Sounds like a great big jump, doesn't it?
It does.
But between fiscal year 2022 and 2023, it went from 1,137 to 10,715.
Dang.
So both years.
What do you think is the reasoning that so many are coming over here?
Well, because the border's wide open and they're coming.
Are they leaving communist, or are they coming over here to be an army? That's an army. Are they single males?
Right. They've had this many encounters that we know of, 10,715. That was at the end of fiscal year 2023, which was October last year. So for that whole year, they had 10,000. From October 23 last year to right now to current date, we've already had 24,026 encounters.
Whoa.
Exactly. So in a year, we jumped 800. The next year, we jumped 8,000. The year after that, we jumped 14,000 in 6 months. At that rate right there, if you continue at this pace, we've already got 24,000. We're looking at 48,000 by October that you count, that you know of. Golly, man.
That blows me away.
Yeah.
The amount. I mean, it totally
I just
does.
had to bring that up.
I am blown away by that amount. Let's just put it like that. That is scary.
Well, and the thing
we should be afraid.
Well, and the thing
don't you think?
Yeah, and the thing with that is what they done was just sat here and took one demographic.
Right.
You know,
that's just one. But China doesn't normally do that. Chinese don't normally go to other countries like that.
They're not allowed to.
No.
Yeah.
So this is scary.
Yeah. This is a big story too.
You know, and you know Joe Biden, he so, has been sold out to China. So this is scary because we've been telling you about his sellout to China. Our southern border here in Texas is just dangerous. You know, I mean, we have other states coming to help out at the border.
Operation Lone Star.
You know, with Operation Lone Star. But there was a report just yesterday of a migrant shot at by Indiana National Guard soldier at our southern border here in El Paso. You know, they're deployed to the nation's border in Texas. He shot at a migrant who had stabbed 2 people. The Indiana National Guard is aware of the incident that happened Sunday, April 14th, reads a statement from the National Guard's media department. We support and care for our soldiers and airmen supporting Operation Lone Star. The Indiana National Guard, as well as the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, deferred to the Texas Military Department for additional information on the shooting.
Right, and this is what they said. The Texas Military Department confirmed a National Guard service member discharged a weapon in a border-related incident. The shooting is under investigation, and more info will be released as it becomes available, according to the Texas Military Department. And what happened was the shooting happened along the edge of the Rio Grande on Sunday afternoon in the El Paso Lower Valley, according to News Nation. Yeah, News Nation reported that according to the U.S. Border Patrol Bulletin, this soldier from Indiana, he saw an individual stabbing a fellow migrant along the river's edge, which is on the U.S. soil. A soldier shot at the person who fled into Mexico. It is unclear whether they were struck. And an El Paso fire and rescue crew responded a short time later and treated 2 migrants for what they described as superficial wounds, which weren't considered life-threatening, according to News Nation article.
What is left out is superficial wounds from what? Bullet or knife?
Well, those are the 2 migrants there, I guess, were the 2 that were getting stabbed. The other guy took off running, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what that means. And, you know, I was going to say, looking at this article on the surface and just trying to figure out how that really went down, I don't believe that Indiana Guard just pulled up on that migrant and shot him. I believe he just shot a warning shot in the air, and the migrant, you know, he heard it, took off running.
Yeah, I do too.
That's what I believe.
I think that's more of what happened. You know, kind of like a, hey, stop type thing.
And it worked.
Know? I mean, we do BB guns in the air just to scare the dogs apart sometimes from fighting. You know, so I know that's a horrible analogy, but it's really kind of the same, I think, anyway.
I think we're on to something, though.
Yes, we are.
As far as border control.
We are.
They get out of line, fire a few warning shots in the air, and
there you go.
They'll turn around and run back.
Yeah,
hey,
all you need is a little pellet gun.
Problem solved, man.
Sounds just like a rifle.
Is this thing working?
Rise up.
Well, hey, everybody, that's it for today. Thanks for listening, and I hope you've enjoyed the show. Hope you've learned some things about what's going on around us in the nation and in your communities. You know, we couldn't do this without your continued support either. We appreciate all of you showing up, taking the time to listen to us today. So please, like I say, make sure to hit the like button, share our show with all your friends. We'll see you next time on Is This Thing Working? And as always, I'm James, and that's my lovely co-host over there,
Denise.
And we'll see you next time.
We're out.